It's time for another edition of the Storm Stackup, where we give you an inside look at all things Dixie State athletics. I'm Carrick Segmiller. He's Ryan Forsey. It's that time again. The Storm Stackup starts now. There were lots of teams in action over the weekend, and we start with volleyball. The Red Storm, in the middle of a 7-game homestand, hosted Azusa Pacific on Saturday and Chaminade on Wednesday. Dixie State dropped the first set against the Cougars on Saturday, then rallied to take the last 3 sets for the victory. The Storm followed up with the victory with what seemed like was destined for another win against Chaminade on Wednesday. However, the Silver Swords had different ideas and rallied from 2 sets down to win 3 sets to 2. We'll have more on those games later when we talk to head coach Robin Felder. To the football field, and the only other team at home over the weekend, Western Oregon came calling as both teams were looking for their first GNAC win. It was all Red Storm in the first quarter as they took a 10-0 lead as the period ended, but the Wolves would respond, scoring 42 unanswered points before Dixie State added 2 late touchdowns to make this final score 42-24. And it was one of those games where there were some positives in a loss for the first time for Dixie State. The other losses this season have been blowout losses, but some positives this week in the loss for Dixie State with a good first quarter, some late touchdowns, and they got the passing game going. Yeah,
really good opportunity. If anything in football, and coaches don't like to hear this, but it was a moral victory. There were a lot of good things that the Red Storm did. Passing attack, as you mentioned, was on point. A little shuffle at the quarterback, but we kind of expected that, and Blackner really had an opportunity to shine. Now, the downside were penalties, and these were big penalties. They were drive killers, they were momentum killers, and those are things that Coach Brumfield and his staff have to address. Now, we've talked earlier in this show in the season, we were expecting growing pains, and we're kind of starting to see that. There's progression in the offense, there's progression in the defense, but it's those penalties and the little things that are starting to emerge. And that's, if anything, a good sign that this team is improving and on the right track. So again, you don't want to say it was a moral victory, but from a standpoint of a fan, as a supporter, booster of the Red Storm, things are looking better.
Of course, there was the interception in that game as well, as the Red Storm were driving to extend their lead in the second quarter, intercepted on the goal line there. Red Storm, some positives in the football game against Western Oregon. Now 1-4 overall, 0-2 in GNAC play. We'll talk a little bit more about their game coming up against Simon Fraser later in the show today. Both soccer teams were on the road over the weekend with games at Dominican and Holy Names. The men's team needed just 1 goal in each game to go 2-0 in the Golden State. Senior midfielder Santiago Alejandro buried a penalty kick just before halftime against Dominican on Friday, and senior midfielder Alex Galvin netted his second goal of the season to give the Storm the win over Holy Names on Sunday. Dixie State now sits at 5-1-1 overall and tied for first with Fresno Pacific at 3-0-1 in Pac West play. I think the theme of the game for Dixie State and of the last few games is they've scored just 1 goal to win in the last 3 games, and it's their defense that has done the job the rest of the way. The Red Storm off to their best start in program history.
No, you're exactly right. We're really starting to see an identity created within the men's soccer program, and it's becoming that defensive intensity. Now, their offense is doing enough and getting the job done. It's their defense that really has stepped up. We're seeing a toughness emerge. We're seeing an unselfish side to this team, and they're really starting to find themselves, and it's really becoming a fun season. I mean, one of their better starts in recent history, and they're heading in the right direction. It's exciting for the men's soccer program.
And actually the first time in program history that men's soccer has won 5 of the first games like this, stand at 5-1-1 overall. Again, 3-0-1 in Pac West play. We'll talk more about their games coming up this weekend a little bit later. On the women's side, the Storm split the 2 games in California with a 2-1 loss to Dominican and a 3-0 shutout of Holy Names. Freshman forward Tori Washington scored the lone goal in the loss to Dominican and netted 2 goals in the win over Holy Names. Those 3 goals in the week and her performances in those games helped Tori win the Pac West Women's Soccer Offensive Player of the Week honors. So the Red Storm dropped a couple of games, then they get that win. That helps them get back on the right track going forward.
Yeah, really good win. A pivotal moment that really we could probably look back throughout the course of the season is going to be this road trip. Really good opportunity for the Red Storm to bounce back after an opening loss on the road and then come back and get that victory. And really excited for Tori. I mean, honestly, that's a big honor, especially coming after the early losses in this season. So again, Coach Bingham seems to have righted the ship in some aspects. And again, this is a growing process. We've talked, this is a younger team. But again, throughout the course of the season, I can really see this team, whether they go on a big road, a victory tear, or even if they finish 500 or below 500, growth-wise, I really feel they're going to look at this road trip, look back on this and say, hey, this is when we might have turned a major corner, made a major improvement, and really jumped off from that for the rest of the season.
And of course, can't forget Dixie State on this roster. A lot of young players, a lot of players never been in the program before, and so they sat at 3-5 overall, get their first Pac West win, 1-3 in the Pac West. With that, we've got to run to our first break, but don't go anywhere. The Red Storm recap continues with cross country, women's golf, and women's tennis. We're back after this timeout.
The Community Education Channel, serving Washington County for 20 years, covering DSU athletics, local high school events, city councils, the Economic Summit, Chamber of Commerce meetings, community events like Washington City Veterans Day celebration, and much more. Visit cectvutah.com for broadcast schedule and more information.
There is a place where rocks bleed and nature blushes on a battlefield green with envy, where dimples determine destiny and a tiny wooden tee holds the outcome in the balance. There is a place where friends are opponents and opponents are friends, where the prize is elusive, the conquest is captivating, and the score isn't settled till the drinks are down. There is a place.
I wish I was in school.
If only I had a math test today.
I'll stay after class. I'll clean the chalkboard.
I wish I was in school.
School ends, but free lunches for your kids don't have to. Find your local food bank at feedingamerica.org/summer meals for help.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
There is a place where young and old make connections, where kids feel like grown-ups, and grown-ups feel like kids. There is a place where beauty arises in contrast, where wonder is universal, and laughter second nature. There is a place where friends find a future, families find each other, and feelings find their home. There is a place.
And we're back inside the Storm Stackup. We're in the middle of the Red Storm recap, so let's jump right back into it with cross country. The Red Storm runners were in Riverside, California for the California Baptist Invitational on Saturday. Junior Skylar Story recorded her second straight win to lead the women's team to a third-place finish. Story's efforts helped her earn Pac West Women's Runner of the Week honors for the second time this year. On the men's side, sophomore Jonas Desta finished in 12th place to lead the team to second place, one of the best performances to date for the men's squad. They will be at SUU this weekend. We'll talk a little bit more about that coming up in the show. To the golf course now, as women's golf team hosted the Dixie State Fall Invitational at Sand Hollow in Hurricane. The team finished 10th out of 13 teams, led by Shelby Madden, who finished tied for 9th at 8 over, shooting rounds of 79 and 73. Colbert Collinsworth followed that up with rounds of 77 and 76 to finish 15th and at 9 over. Wrapping up the Red Storm recap today, we hit the tennis court as the Red Storm women's tennis team traveled to Grand Junction, Colorado for its only matches of the fall season. Dixie State earned wins over Colorado Christian and Colorado State Pueblo and fell to Colorado Mesa University and Metro State Denver. Sophomore Caroline Kukaris led the way, going 4-0 without dropping a single set at #1 singles on the week. Women's tennis will return to action for the spring season starting in February. As for us, we'll return to action right after this break when we're joined by volleyball head coach Robin Felder. More Storm Stackup after this.
Everywhere that we go, he makes people laugh and makes people smile, and I feel like I have that quality.
He's the one who always takes me fishing. I watch golf with him. And
I watch him cook because when I grow up, I want to be a cook too.
We have the same faces like this.
Dad is the one, when you fall, that picks you up.
That unconditional sense of presence and reassurance is really what makes him my father.
There is a place where the sun doesn't hide in the winter, where the greens stay green and the crimson canyons still glow. There is a place where dimples determine destiny, and a tiny wooden tee holds the outcome in the balance. There is a place where we drive for show, putt for dough, and settle the score with another round. There is a place.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
Kids will spend 15 minutes watching online videos like this one.
Brushing for 2 minutes now can save your child from severe tooth pain later. 2 minutes, twice a day. They have the time.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to
Washington
go.
County for
Then one
20
day
years,
I was adopted.
covering DSU
My new
athletics,
parents opened their
local
hearts
high school
and home
events,
to me.
city councils,
My parents
the
cook my
economic
favorite
summit,
breakfast for me
Chamber
every
of Commerce
morning.
meetings,
My parents take me on
like
trips I
Washington
never
City
thought I would go
Veterans Day
on.
celebration, and much more.
They gave me a
Visit
home and an even better reason to use that
CECTV.com
suitcase.
for broadcast
My
schedule
parents aren't
and
perfect,
more information.
but they're perfect for me.
There is a place where the desert comes alive, where rain breaks forth from solid stone and gardens spring from blistered rock. There is a place with enough color to make a rainbow jealous, where boulders are bigger than buildings and cliffs are higher than clouds. There is a place that will straighten your step, tighten your grip, widen your eyes, and open your jaw. There is a place.
Welcome back to the Storm Stackup. Today we're pleased to be joined by volleyball head coach Robin Felder. The Storm are 7-8 overall, 4-3 in the current Pac West season. Coach, it's great to have you on the show today. Thanks for stopping by.
You're back.
We appreciate you being here. I like to start off with kind of an easy question. We kind of ease into the interview before we get to the deeper stuff, the meat of the interview. What's been your favorite volleyball memory, coaching or playing?
Oh, that's a tough one. There's been a lot of good ones. Probably our most recent would just be last year. Just that win at Northwest in front of their crowd. That's probably one of my favorite things to do, is to just silence a crowd that big, that fast. So that's definitely been a big highlight of mine.
Of course, you're in your 4th year here at Dixie State, including a Sweet 16 run last year. The team's really seen marked improvement each year as you've been here. What's been the key to that improvement as you get a little bit better each year?
Yeah, I think that's just it. We've just tried to get a little bit better each year. We lost a lot of kids from last year, and so I just feel like we're rebuilding that tradition that we had: outwork, out-talk, out-hustle, and just getting kids on board with what we're doing. We've seen vast improvement this year from the beginning of the season to now. We just have so many new kids out there learning how to play together, and I think we've taken some big steps. We're not quite where we want to be yet, but we're definitely moving in the right direction.
Of course, mentioned the Sweet 16 run from last year, but a lot of people, that can kind of get overshadowed that you had an NCAA tournament appearance the year before as well in 2013. And those appearances in the postseason are obviously big for your players, and for your team, but probably for the coaches as well. From a coaching perspective, what kind of experience does that give you, having those postseason runs and those NCAA tournament experiences under your belt?
Yeah, it's just nice to know that you can, that we see the development of a team, that you see, you know, them go from A to B at the end of a season, and being able to go into the NCAA, you just get a chance to see your team peak. And, you know, with the past 2 years, that's really what we've done at the end of the season, is just peak at the right time. We've been able to have big wins at the end of our season, and kids that just kept their chins down in their heads in the season the whole time. Really gritty kids that just worked hard all year and just wanted to win, and that mentality going forward for us coaches and for the players that we had is huge.
Of course, you talk about big game experience, players with big game experience in the NCAA tournament or a conference rival. Is it the same for a coach as well, knowing I've coached in the NCAA tournament, I've coached against these conference rivals before?
Yeah, not so much. I mean, it is, but you know, as a coach, you can only do so much. And you know, I tell my girls all the time, you're ready, you're prepared, now you have to go out and you have to do it. And so, you know, it has been nice to be in the NCAA and to coach and do all that, but really the experience is for the girls. And once they can, you know, the first year we went and we were nervous and we were overwhelmed by, and then the second year you could tell they were just like, all right, we've been here, we know how, you know, we know how to do it. And we just have a new group of kids that hasn't had that experience under their belt. So I'm hoping we can make a late season run and really give ourselves a chance to be back there for them to have that experience.
Of course, you're in the thick of the Pac-West season now, 7 games in, stand with a 4-3 record right now. Really opportunities to have won most of those games that you've lost in conference so far. What's been the biggest thing that you've learned about your team so far in the Pac-West season this year?
You know, consistency has just been our key and our downfall. When we've been able to play consistent and control the ball on our side of the net and play at a high level for 3 games or 5 games, we've been really successful. In games where we haven't been able to do that, big highs and big lows and errors, and we just haven't been able to take care of the ball. And so that's really where we've struggled on the road, at home. You know, last night against Chaminade, we went to 5. We just couldn't finish. We couldn't take care of the ball when we needed to. And so that kind of has plagued our team so far, and that's where we need to get better moving forward. And
you mentioned the Chaminade game before I could even bring it up. You probably knew I was going to bring it up. But
you see these bags? That's no.
You and I have talked already this season. We've talked about that theme of your team finishing, and being able to finish in every game, really.
Yeah.
And 2 sets up, 23-22 lead in set 4 against Chaminade, and just couldn't quite get it done. How do you go about addressing those at practice? I mean, are there certain situations that you can kind of put your players into at practice that help address the finishing? How is that done?
You know, it really has been a matter of focus for us. We've talked about just being able to focus and not get chaotic and not get manic, and just be able to focus on what your job is and do your job. You know, the one player that forgets to do their job is the one that the ball lands in their area naturally. And so we just lose focus and we just get a little bit careless, I think. The word I always use is we have to have a sense of urgency. We have to have a sense of we need to finish game 3 right now. And you know, when we get a little careless, then, you know, last night happens, and that's exactly what happened.
You got 2 more games left in the current 7-game homestand against none other than league leader Hawaii Pacific, and then after that it's Academy of Art. That kind of on the opposite end of the Pac-West standings. But how big do these 2 games become, knowing that after this you've got 5 more on the road?
Yeah, you know, we have to take care of business at home, you know, and against HPO, we're going to see them at the end of a long stretch for them, you know, in the U.S., and we have to take care of business at home. You know, we've had the opportunity to scout them and watch them, and, you know, they're bringing a lot of kids back from last year, same type of team. We just have to get a little hungrier. And so really, I really think the team that wins the Pac this year is going to be the team that takes care of business at home and can win on the road. And those are 2 things that we have to be able to do if we want to finish where we want to this season.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you stopping by and joining us on the show today. We wish you the best of luck in the games this weekend.
All right.
Again, Coach Felder and the volleyball team will host Hawaii Pacific on Saturday as the Storm get a shot at the #1 team in the Pac West. We'll have all the updates for you at DixieAthletics.com. We're joined now by Storm Stackup correspondent Shelby Young and Nicole Johnson with this week's player profile feature with volleyball junior setter Kaylee Fry.
I'm Kaylee Fry. I am from Orem, Utah, and I started playing with my sister just like in the 4th grade. We just play outside. I knew I loved it, and I knew I just wanted to play in high school and then later in college. I feel like my family has a big impact on it, and then also desire to do my best motivates me as well. I learned to be confident in yourself. That goal is high enough to be able to achieve them and work really hard. Focusing on every game, making sure that we're doing our job, winning every game that we can, I think everything will fall into place. Definitely want to win conference this year. I think our team has the ability to do it, and I think we have a really good chance to do it if we just keep working really hard. I think teamwork and also hard work, both those I've learned playing at Dixie.
There is a place where rocks bleed and nature blushes on a battlefield green with envy, where dimples determine destiny and a tiny wooden tee holds the outcome in the balance. There is a place where friends are opponents and opponents are friends, where the prize is elusive, the conquest is captivating, and the score isn't settled till the drinks are down. There is a place.
Es un corto trayecto de su colonia hasta su bosque local. Para encontrar un parque o zona verde cerca de usted, visite descubreelbosque.org.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
The Community Education Channel, serving Washington County for 20 years, covering DSU athletics, local high school events, city councils, the Economic Summit, Chamber of Commerce meetings, community events like Washington City Veterans Day celebration, and much more. Visit cectvutah.com for broadcast schedule and more information.
And welcome back inside the CEC TV studio and the Storm Stackup one final time. It's time to take a look ahead at what's in store this weekend in Dixie State Athletics. We start on the soccer pitch with games against BYU Hawaii on Thursday and Hawaii Hilo on Saturday. And for the men and the women, both very winnable games, especially for the men, the kind of games that you're supposed to win. Got to have good performances and follow up with what they've done so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree with it. Very winnable games. Starting with the men's side, you want to carry momentum. You want to keep things going with the streak that they're on. BYU Hawaii having kind of a down year, not playing very well, very inconsistent. Opportunity for the men to jump on it. Now the big game, and this is a tough test, is the Red Storm can't look ahead. And right now, contentment is the enemy to success, and head coaches have to be aware of that right now, especially looking to Hawaii Hilo. Undefeated season, going to be a very tough matchup, very good game. For the women's side, you want to build on the momentum. You've got the emergence of Tori Washington, you've got Jasmine Arroyo. Keep building on that. Again, very winnable against BYU, BYU Hawaii, not Idaho. Oh, wrong place. But either way, you're going to look ahead to the game against Hawaii Hilo, and tougher match. If the women can go 1-1, that's a very successful homestand for them.
So again, soccer against BYU Hawaii on Thursday and Hawaii Hilo on Saturday. Moving on, cross country back in action again on Saturday. The first time they'll have consecutive weeks in which they compete. They're up in Cedar City. The SUU Color Country invite on Saturday, and not a home event, but as close as they're going to get.
Yeah, really. It's been a really good year for the cross-country program. Had some very early season success with winning their first match overall. So you want to build on that program. And again, you're not having kind of a home field per se. This is going to, as close as you can get, have family and friends and some students get up there, support the team, and really, hopefully have a good showing there at the Color Country invite.
Of course, the women's team will look to Skylar Story. Story going for her third straight win, won the first two races in Arizona and California. On the men's side, they'll look to Jonas Desta and perhaps see the emergence of George Barlow, the returner from last year, to come and do well at the SUU Color Country invite on Saturday. To the volleyball court now. The Red Storm Spikers will take on Hawaii Pacific on Saturday, and you saw it right there in the interview with Coach Felder. Hawaii Pacific right now, the #1 team in the Pac West. A good opportunity for the Red Storm to bounce back from the loss to Chaminade over the #1 team in the Pac West.
Yeah, listening to Coach Felder, it was a very entertaining set, very entertaining match against Chaminade, and I really thought, and I think a lot of people thought that were there, that that Red Storm, was going to pull off the upset, so to speak, against Chaminade, coming in Chaminade third in the conference. So this is a very good opportunity for the Red Storm, and as Coach Felder was talking about, it's all going to come down to consistency and taking care of the ball. And this team has to learn how to finish. We've talked about it. She talked about it. If they can learn how to finish, this might be the upset, the big win that they're looking for this season.
The Red Storm set to enter a crucial stretch for the volleyball team as they have just 2 more home matches before going back out on the road for 5 straight matches. Wrapping up the look ahead this week, we talk about football back on the road for just the second time this week at Simon Fraser on Saturday. And for the second week in a row, really a game that on paper says Dixie State should be set up for a win on Saturday.
Yeah, you kind of hope for the best. And again, this is the turning point, the second half of the season for Dixie State. Now they're going on the road for most of the month of October, and you're going to start things off with Simon Fraser, a program that they've predominantly had success against. But again, Dixie State's been marred by, as we mentioned earlier, marred by inopportune penalties, allowing big plays to happen. Now the offense, the defense has been a little bit ahead of the offense. Offense had a very good showing, as we talked about, against Western Oregon, so you look to build on that. Now, are we going to see any major personnel changes? We may see Blackner step into the starting role. We may see Barney stay there. I really don't think it matters. Both quarterbacks have had their strong points and their weaknesses. Blackner obviously having a better game against Western Oregon. But still, the passing game, the running game is starting to show consistent progression. Now you have to work on those little things. Penalties, allowing big plays, defensive lapses, offensive bad judgment, those types of things. But again, I really expect Dixie State to have a good practice, and I'm going to pick them for a win this week. I really think they're going to pull it off against Simon Fraser.
Of course, an interesting dynamic in that game as well, kind of like last week against Western Oregon. Simon Fraser last in the conference in pass defense, but second in the conference in rushing defense. Dixie State will have to have the passing game going for another week to try and get the win up in Canada as we head north of the border for the game against Simon Fraser. Well, there you go. There's this week's look ahead on the Storm Stack Up, and that will wrap up this week's show here from CEC TV Studio. Be sure to catch us next week, and always, I'm Carrick, he's Ryan. It's the Storm Stack Up.